Welcome to Chats Over Coffee with my yoga teacher. This is a podcast which is a series of conversations between a comedian and his yoga teacher. We talk about meditation, yoga, the nature of consciousness, happiness, that kind of stuff. But it's pretty laid back, so if you've never done yoga before or meditated, then don't worry. The idea is that you should still hopefully enjoy it. So, I say sit back, I don't know what you're doing. I listen to podcasts when I'm driving or cooking, so I wouldn't be like sitting back to listen to a podcast anyway. But whatever you're doing, I hope you enjoy the show. Here it is. I get quite annoyed when I'm meditating and I'm told not to think about the breath, because then I automatically think about the breath and I can't stop thinking about the breath.
What meditation tells you not to think about the breath? Normally, don't meditations tell you to think about something?
You know, maybe to like get yourself in the zone, you sort of focus on the breath for a bit, but then you're supposed to let it go or something and not do it. And I'm sure you've in like Shavasana or whatever have said, now don't concentrate on the breathing element of it.
Yeah, let go of control of the breath. Yeah.
But I just, when you're thinking that, how do you just can't not.
I think it's funny because I think it's like when someone says like, you know, when someone tells you to like examine how you're moving and then you're like, oh, am I moving wrong? Or like if you really start to think about how you walk and then you start walking like a robot because you're not quite sure if you're walking. And it's like, don't think about the breath. It's like, well, I'm thinking about it now.
Well, it's like having a tiger or a T-Rex in it. It's like, don't think about him. If you don't think about it, it'll go away. But, you know, it's like, well, there's a fucking tiger over there. I'm going to think about it. You know, that's how it feels. Like, I don't know how to then not think about breathing.
I think the idea is that you start to relax so much that you're not necessarily thinking inhale, exhale, because obviously you don't need to think to breathe or we wouldn't be able to sleep. So I think maybe the idea is that you start to get so relaxed that you can let go of that need to control the breath or count the breath or think about it in that way, and you can just watch it come naturally. And maybe that's a short breath or maybe that's a deep breath, but trying to think about letting go of that control. That's about as far as I would go.
It's just hard though, because it's because you get about your day not thinking about breathing, and then if you suddenly think about it, you're like, feel like you need to be the one that's doing it. And then it's like you can't suddenly switch it.
Definitely.
You can't suddenly switch it to automatic and manual, like between, can you? Like that's what you should. It's so strange. Like if you stop thinking about breathing and you're like, you feel like you're consciously doing the in breath and the out breath because you're thinking about it, you can't suddenly flick the switch and it just go, all right, I'll take over. Like your lungs just go, I got this. It doesn't happen, does it? So then I end up spending 10 minutes sat there thinking, I'm trying to stop thinking about this. I don't know.
For me, trying to stop something is harder than trying to do something. So if you say like, you don't think about the breath, that's harder than saying, do think about, you know, your toes.
Yeah.
Or something. You know what I mean? So if you say like, and then you'll stop thinking about your breath because you're thinking about your toes or whatever, and then your breath will go back to whatever natural state it wants to be at, and you'll be concentrating on, I don't know, whatever little thing you're trying to concentrate on. Like I know I've done a meditation and it starts out focusing on the breath, and then you move on to, I think we've done this before as well, the white light and the dark smoke. So trying to breathe in, you know, mental idea of positivity and breathe out negativity. And you have that visualization to help you stay concentrated on the process. And then partway through that meditation, she says to stick with just the light. And so you just focus on the light. And then she says, oh, maybe you feel more lucid now. Maybe you feel more relaxed or whatever. Maybe you feel this clarity in the mind. Stick with that feeling. So you kind of let go of the light aspect or that proper visualization. You've let go of the breath. You've let go of everything, and you're trying to stick with that feeling of like clarity and lucidity maybe in the mind or whatever. And I quite like that because I thought that was like you're slowly moving your concentration rather than saying, stop thinking about that. You know. Well, I had a yoga teacher. She was quite categorically said, like, it is not possible to stop thinking. Like, she said what you can control is just, you know, how busy it is, what you think about, concentrating on something, like the breath or a mantra or whatever, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's just like grounding it in one area or something, isn't it, I suppose, yeah. You can't turn it off, can you? Like your brain.
No, I would say that if you're an average day person and you're trying to meditate, the focus should not be on trying to turn off your brain. It's not really going to work.
Well, I don't know. Sometimes I think, like, if you aren't experienced, maybe I thought this. Like, I thought that maybe that was what was going to happen. And then I think one thing that, even now, years on, I still spend a lot of the time thinking, oh, I've not been doing a very good job of it today and stuff. I still get a lot of thought interruptions and stuff, and like probably most days. And
yeah, but in my mind, I would separate those two things out. So I would say, like, you saying I'm not doing it very well is a bit unnecessary. You saying I've had a lot of mental interruptions today, like my brain has been thinking about things. That's okay. That's just a fact. There's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with that. That's just something that's happened. But the problems occurs when you start to put that label on it, like, oh, I was more, had lots of interruptions in my mind today. I was really thinking loads, and that's bad. That's when the problem happens, because the bad bit isn't necessary. You don't need to just judge it like that. Because I think of all the things, meditation and yoga, it varies every single day. Even in your body. So you might think you're absolutely happy, fantastic. You come and lay down on your mat. Maybe we're doing a really chill class. We do a little back bend or something. And you're like, oh my God, this really hurts my neck or my back. And I thought I was absolutely fine. What was wrong? Well, there might not be anything wrong. And tomorrow it might go back to feeling fine. And you'll have absolutely no idea why that hurt yesterday. And you won't be able to fix it because nothing was really wrong in the first place. Not in terms of like actual problems that need to be addressed. It just happens, And I think it's the same in the mind. You have days where you're really focused and clear and you meditate and it's really nice and relaxing, and then you have other days where it's like like you have bugs in your head or something.
So you should not label it to say that you're doing well either.
I would steer clear of that as well. Yeah, really, I wouldn't label it good or bad.
There was a rule in comedy that Sarah Millican's supposed to have invented called the 11 o'clock rule, which is that when the day after a show, whether you've done really well or really badly at it, by 11 o'clock the next morning, you forget about it. Like, don't revel in having done a good job, and don't sulk about, like, having had a bad one. You can temporarily do it. I guess that's the idea. Like, you can do it you can feel good that night, but once it gets to 11 o'clock the next morning, just wipe the slate clean again. Like, it's gone now. Like, it's sort of similar in a way, isn't it?
I like that. I do like that because, even everybody makes mistakes. Like, every day you can, maybe you shout and you didn't mean, you just got angry because you were hungry or something. Like, everybody makes mistakes where you kind of react in ways that you later think was bad, or vice versa. Maybe you're really happy or proud about something. But I do think that you need to be able to let it go and kind of move on. But my biggest thing is, how do you react with knowing that other people probably aren't going to let it go? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying you would lose fans or yogis or customers, but what's to say that if you messed up so badly, or you really weren't on your game, or maybe you had to quit because you were sick or something really awful, and in the end that's the impression someone got of your performance, for want of a better word, of whatever you do, then how do you have to let them go as well? Like, how do you balance that out? Because, like, yeah, sure, you can let it go, and you could be perfectly happy the next day and be like, yeah, it was a crap gig, but whatever, I'm moving on now. I messed up, I'm only human. But how do you bring that back for other people as well?
Did Michael Richards think that when he started using the N-word on stage? Like, I don't know if you remember that. It used to be Kramer in Seinfeld in about 2006 or 7. Like, had a go at a black guy in the audience and just continually repeated, he's an N-word, like, continually. And I don't think he's done a lot since. I don't think the 11 o'clock rule.
Well, maybe that's a bit far, but I kind of thinking down those lines, but maybe that's a little bit much.
Like, the next week is like, these people aren't answering my calls. I've let it go. Why are they?
Yeah,
what
exactly.
A bunch of stuck-ups.
Why does nobody want me to perform for them?
Yeah. Sorry. That's an extreme case, but yeah, as is probably that you're kind of right in that. If you do a really bad gig, you're probably not going to be asked back there very quickly. I mean, people do give you another chance, but you have to wait for it or earn it again by doing something else that warrants you them putting faith in you.
I think that's what I would have thought, for me, at least personally, that's what bothers me when I mess up. It's not that I feel like I've done a bad job and, oh, aren't I horrible? My problem is that I didn't do my job well. So, like, I will have affected someone else. If I mess up in a class, I feel bad because that means you didn't get a good class. I mean, yeah, sure, maybe you'd be a bit embarrassed or whatever, that kind of thing as well. And I think I am pretty good at letting things go, especially if it is, like, more temporary or a bit, you know, like, oh, it doesn't really matter, or maybe I'll never see them again because it was just a one-off class, or, you know, something kind of like that is kind of easy. But when it's people that you know and you're repeating it and it's like, oh, you know, I really messed up then. I hope they come back.
Well, I don't know. If it's repeat people, I think they're probably more likely to come back. Like, they'll let you fail once, you know, like before they think that you've lost it.
Yeah.
If I do a bad Edinburgh show one year, if someone has seen my previous 4 and liked it, they're not going to not see me again, perhaps. And they might think twice, but they'll probably still say, we've seen him 5 times, 4 times, he was good, and we're going to, you know, one time it was a bit funny. But maybe they'll say, oh, maybe it wasn't him, maybe it was me, or maybe it was that day or that audience or that, you know, they'll cut you more slack if you've got more credit in the bank, people cut you a little bit of slack. When you do something for the first time, that's a problem. I remember the first time I ever did a tryout spot at the Glee Club in Birmingham, I just died. Like, I was good at the time. I was still good. Like, I took such a long time getting the spot. I was so ready for it. Like, it was only 15 minutes. Like, I was doing 20 minutes for like loads of clubs at the weekend. Like, it was not a problem. But they had something where, so have you heard of the Glee Comedy Club?
I haven't.
Well, there's not one in Leeds, but there's one in Birmingham, Cardiff, Nottingham and Oxford, I think. And there's one in Glasgow now as well. So I do it now. The first time I got offered a spot in Birmingham, I was so like, oh, I'm just delighted to have, like, I'm going to be well in here because I know it's usually a really good club. Yeah. But the previous year, they had some lawsuit against, now you had heard of the Glee Club, like is it American TV show where they sang that, you know, they always sang that song, you know, that one. Just a small time girl.
Oh, maybe.
Come on, you must know that. The Glee. There was a TV show or something. The Glee Club.
Well, I thought a Glee Club is just a Glee Club, like you have them in high schools and stuff.
Yeah, but
like
that's what the TV show was. It was like several series of these. I don't know whether they were kids or something. It was quite a big. Okay. It was quite a big hit.
What year was it a big hit?
Oh, I don't know. You were definitely alive.
Remember what I said about our TV in the area?
No. I think you'd have been in the UK then. I think it's definitely within the last 10 years. It was, and it was ubiquitous for a period of time. Like, it was massive. So anyway, the Glee Club had a lawsuit against them because the TV show were trying to claim the rights to the name, the Glee Club, but the Glee Club were like, well, we've been here longer, and they're much smaller operation than the big American TV show. Yeah. But anyway, they went to court, and the Glee Comedy Club won. So like, that was a nice big middle finger to the massive TV show. So that's nice. Anyway, as a treat, because it was a really big case, everyone that worked on the legal team got free tickets to go and watch a comedy show, and they all came on the night I was doing the tryout.
Oh.
So all these people never really seen comedy before, but like the majority of the audience was these people on a Thursday, so it wasn't the weekends. It was not the busiest night, so they really took over it. So it wasn't like they were counteracted by other people, and they just hated me. Like, they were so judgmental, and like, honestly, like, I've been doing some of my best jokes, and there would be no laughter, and you just hear people going, "Oh
my gosh!"
And afterwards, I was like, the sound guy who's been there forever was like, oh, they were really harsh to you. That wasn't really very fair. Yeah. You'll get another go. Don't worry about it. But I didn't hear anything for years because even if there are accentuating circumstances where, like, where you've obviously had a really tough time, it's been sort of, you know, you've been dealt a bad hand, you're still the one that's not got any laughs for all your jokes. So you could be the best comedian in the world, and they know why you haven't done that well, but they've still watched you not do that well. But that's the first time you do it. So if I'd had that gig, having done that club for years, they would have gone, oh, well, it's just there were just weird people in tonight and we understand it. When it's the first time you do it, it looks like it's more your fault, even though what could I have done in that situation? I mean, maybe there is something I could have done and probably would handle it better now, but like it was still, I had no credit in the bank.
I mean, but we've all been in that place where we thought maybe we could learn from it. You know, like you're saying, maybe now you could have done something slightly different, which maybe wouldn't have been quite.
Yeah, I'd have called them or something. That would have sorted it out, I think. I could at least have gone out swinging, and I could at least told them that they were arseholes or something. Yeah. Like at the time, I was just like, I'll just plow on. Maybe they'll like the next joke. Maybe they'll like the next joke. But I don't know. Part of you's thinking, well, if the people in the club are gonna understand what I'm doing, maybe they would prefer me to just do my spot, and they'll still give me some slack and say, oh well, he's actually a good act, but they're just weird. Like he had good jokes, but I should have just been horrible to him and just saw what happened. But
I mean, we always have those kind of like little frights when we go somewhere, and then the audience, if you want to call them that, aren't what you're expecting. Like, you know, I've been to like corporate classes, and I covered a corporate class for another teacher once, and I went in, and you expect a certain amount of physical capability out of someone who can go to a class, and if you can't do that, then you really need to start on a different journey, if you will, or start on a private class. You know, there's I'm not saying that, I'm just like, for example, my father has recently broken his neck. I say recently, it's been 3 years now or something like that, but he broke his neck, and he's had plates put in his neck, and he's really got bad problems with his spine. I would never, ever have him in one of my yoga classes. I don't care how healthy he thinks he is. It's not going to happen, because it's not, most poses would not be good for him. Like, it's just something that I need to make sure it is tailored to him should he want to come to a class. Like, and I think that for the most part, people who have problems or issues or things going on, they would know that. And you go, like, I covered this class, and then there were 3 pregnant women who were heavily pregnant, not just like, oh, just by the way, I'm pregnant, but you can't tell yet, you know, not like that. Like, absolutely, like, you literally just sit there. I have no idea what I can do with you. Like, it was early on in my well, it wasn't like within the last year. It was years and years ago, when I first kind of, within the first 2 years of teaching.
You take any gig then, don't you?
That was actually one of the things that prompted me to do some pregnancy training, because I didn't know what to do with these lovely ladies who had decided to try out this corporate yoga class with, you know, 5 guys, 2 women who aren't pregnant, 1 guy who's a runner, and then 3 pregnant ladies. It's like, I have let's just have a seat. Let's just sit on the floor. Now, looking back, I would probably have done a little bit better than I did. Admittedly, though, we did do fine, and people came up to me after class and said they enjoyed it, so obviously it wasn't crash and burn. But I know that looking back, I could have learned from that and changed slightly, or maybe something like that. And obviously, I have done more training since then, and I would feel more confident with that kind of thing as well. But there's always going to be that case where if someone was watching it, they think, oh my gosh, this person has no idea what they're doing. Why did we hire them? But it's not me, it's them.
You can't go back and change it, though, can you? Like, you have to have had the experience that was a bit ropey for you to be able to do it better the next time.
Exactly.
You can't live in this world of like, oh, if I'd have done something different. And that's another thing about those like not having free will arguments. Like, you can't keep kidding yourself that you could have done something differently to what you did at the time. You can only learn from the thing that you did do, and then you can't live in a what if situation. What if I'd have just called all the audience assholes? It would have. Well, just do it next time, you know.
Yeah.
It's funny you do corporates, because comedians do corporates as well.
I always think that they never turn out the same, or what you expect them to be like when you go do a corporate thing. I wonder if it's because the people aren't paying. So the corporation pays, so the people don't pay, so they don't feel like they have to necessarily get their money's worth or something. I don't know. Like, and so they come into it with a different attitude of like, it doesn't matter if I don't do it properly, or if it's not very good, or if I don't like, it doesn't matter as much. You know what I mean?
Oh God! I tell you what, this is really similar. I don't do many corporate things. The only corporate things I've done are basically when someone has put together a corporate, but they've kind of told us that it's not a corporate, so that they don't pay you really good money. So the only corporate things I've done are basically like stuff that people have not really told you it's a corporate, but it is a corporate, but they've pretended that it's not, so they can get you for less.
Right, Okay.
But they're not fun because basically everybody knows each other there. Sometimes they're under duress and they like to, interrupt you because they want you to make fun of their boss or something, but you're not really that asked. But the power dynamic is very different because, you're very much an intruder, and it's different. It's like going into someone's living room and doing it in front of their family or something like that. And they're like, who's this guy? Like,
It's like if they were to like give everyone in the office tickets to go somewhere and watch a show, so that not everyone in the audience is from the office, but maybe a couple of big tables are, or something like that. It would still be better than just, like you're saying, just.
I don't know. That sounds very similar to my Glee Club tryout. Because they haven't paid either, so it's similar.
The other thing, just to kind of play both sides of this, I've obviously done a lot of corporate classes because I used to teach where I used to work, which is where the corporate classes I do now, still online. And when I was there, I got some great relationships going with my students, with my regulars. And I would have I think I had maybe 6 or 7 regular students. And it was really good. And they came like every week for a year or longer, And so on the flip side, you can get both in terms of with yoga, for sure. Like you can get a really good session going with people who really enjoy it, who are really learning and, feeling the benefits of it physically from doing it once a week and then mostly working at a desk and being able to tailor it to that kind of thing. And, it definitely has a lot of benefits. And on the other side, you can get ones where, they're like, oh, we're just doing health weeks. Let's grab a yoga teacher and toss her in somewhere in the schedule. And then nobody cares. And they're just messing around. And it's kind of like some horrible, like, oh my God, what am I doing here? But, it's a flip side. But like I said, I do have a corporate class that's regular now. Like I've had it since August. And that's really good. I have a lot of regular students who come to that, which is really nice. That's good to see.
Yeah, it's just, it sounds like, when you do these corporate comedy shows that you do really badly at, but if one person comes out afterwards and says, oh, I actually thought that was quite good, it's all worth it in the end, isn't it? So,
actually, that's a really good point.
Well, I'm just saying that's what people say, don't they? If you can get through to one person, but I don't think it works with comedy. If only one person's laughing out of
No, I think it doesn't work with the laughing, maybe. That might be a bit hollow. But if they come up to you afterwards and tell you that they thought it was good and they thought the room was a bit quiet or whatever, but they thought it was good, that would probably make you feel all right. Do you not think?
Yeah, I think sometimes when you do a show, the acoustics are dreadful and that you actually get told afterwards that you did a lot better than you would have heard that you did. And that happens. I did something in Saltaire a couple of years ago. So last time I remember this happening. The room was massive and there was some troublesome characters in it, but I don't think they really played up, but it made me feel like it was going to be harder than it was. And I didn't leave any sort of space for interaction. I just pumped out the set, and I thought I'd done really, really, really averagely. I couldn't hear anything really coming back at all, but I just left the pauses where I should have done. And when I finished, I got a massive ovation. And then when I came off, everyone was extremely complimentary, but I really thought I'd struggled. I just didn't, that can happen. So sometimes people will come up and say that you did really well and you don't, and you can tell it's not them trying to comfort you because they feel like you need, they're not like, oh, actually you did quite well, isn't he secretly rubbish, they're thinking, but so you believe them when they say, oh, you just couldn't hear back, because so the room's not shaped properly, you won't hear it come back at you so much, so it does happen.
And here's how this plays into being a yoga teacher. So people don't know what face they're making when they're taking yoga poses. So as a teacher, I look at you and I judge how difficult the pose is for you based basically on what you're doing. And one of the things is obviously your facial expression. If you are pulling a crazy face, I'm going to take you out of that pose pretty quickly because you're probably dying and I don't want to kill anyone. If you're like, and you're doing, these are my cues, these are cues for any physical fitness person. If people are making crazy faces, something's not quite right. But people don't necessarily know they're making those faces. So sometimes you might go through a whole class and it's like, oh gosh, I've really overdone it today or whatever. And then if people come up to you afterwards, the people that you saw earlier making these crazy faces and tell you it was, a fantastic class and they really enjoyed it, it's like, oh, right. okay, it wasn't that bad then. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That kind of thing. And so for anyone who's listening, make a point to compliment people, because it really makes a difference.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
If you do something and you like it and you see that person later, tell them, because it does make a difference when they know that things have gone well and things, haven't gone well.
Yeah. So, yeah. Yep. At least now I know when I'm not enjoying a pose, I can just pull a really awful face, and then you're just like, think, oh, no more. I'll tell you what, I really hate that you made us do yesterday.
Oh.
A half moon. Whenever you say we're going to do half moon, I just think,
really?
Oh no, because I find it really hard. I'm probably better than I was at doing it, but I'm sure I don't do a very picturesque one, but I am on one leg, so that's something, isn't it? Whenever you say we're going to do that, my heart sinks a little bit.
That's really interesting, because I wouldn't have said that it was like, you're just like starfish, you just legs are wide, arms are wide, or whatever, and then you kind of lean off and balance over one leg. So I wouldn't have thought that would be like your most hated pose. Usually our hated poses are the ones that are like, we're trying to get ourselves into a position that's really uncomfortable or whatever. So that's really interesting. And is it because you find the balance difficult, or you don't like holding your leg up, or anything like that?
I think do you find the balance difficult? I don't feel as steady, Like, I feel like if I get knocked off balance, I feel like I'm in a position where I don't feel like I'm going to recover as easily, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And do you feel that way when you're in Warrior 3?
No, I feel all right there.
Because you could just go to Warrior 3 if you feel wobbly. Like, literally, that's like such a quick it's literally the hip open or close. It's the same pose, except... You
got no comments on my Warrior 3 or Half Moon or anything? Like...
What do you mean? In terms of, like, improvement? Or...
No, you haven't been watching it and thinking, ugh. Gonna have to have a word with him about that at some point.
No, I mean, the only thing that I would say is that is really, really common in people who obviously do not watch themselves, because we tend not to have mirrors in our houses like that and stuff, is that usually the head and the foot line up, but the in-between doesn't. And I have noticed that sometimes with you, but not necessarily all the time.
Oh, it's all coming out now, is it?
Well, you asked.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like the head will be a little bit low, and then the hips will be higher, and then the foot will be low, but really they could both do to come up a bit.
All right, well, give me time,
You asked.
It's such a... makes me... I'm big enough to take it, and then, like, it comes out, and I'm like, well, fuck you then.
I've changed my mind. I don't want to know.
That's like, honestly, that's like when people ask for constructive feedback, and they actually want you to say, oh, it was great. No, nothing negative to say.
Yes. Is this an English thing? Because nobody should ask for feedback if they don't want feedback.
No. Well, it happens all the time. If a new actor, and I probably did this, is asking for advice, they don't want advice. They want you to say, that was good. No advice. That happens a lot in, like, if a new comedian came up to me and said, do you have some advice? Then I'd probably try and get out of the conversation by just complimenting in as honest a way as I possibly could without saying, and then just like move on, because I just feel like they probably don't want to hear you need to write better jokes and get better at performing jokes.
Yeah.
What's my advice?
Maybe
Learn to drive.
Else, like,
that's my advice to comedians.
Yeah. I don't know if someone had an opinion that was like, oh, you're very still on stage, maybe you need to move around a bit or something like that. Like, maybe those kind of tips might be more acceptable to give. I don't know. I know what you mean, though. It's very awkward.
I used to be very, very stationary, and I still am. And so if someone ever told me that, and they have done, I'd just be like, well, no, because that's like... that's what I'm doing. That's me, so...
Yeah, but I mean, if you asked for feedback and then they told you that, you would just be like, oh, all right, okay, that's your opinion. Yeah. But you might not necessarily take it to heart, because you might think, well, I've made this as a conscious choice. Why would I ask them?
Because if I don't have a problem with what I'm doing, then why am I asking someone for advice?
No, I mean you as an example. Like as a new, if someone was new and they were asking for some advice, and then they gave you a comment that was like something you had making a choice to do, you wouldn't take it personally, because you'd be like, oh, right, okay. But then you would know that you were making that as a conscious decision, so you would stick with that because that was something you wanted to do. That's what I mean.
Oh, so it just reiterates to yourself.
Yeah.
That, So if you're like, oh yeah, can I have some advice? And they say, oh, you need to stop doing the thing that distinctly makes you you, then you go, oh no, well, you're wrong there. You don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So. Well, actually, you probably just go, oh, right, okay, but then you wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so maybe it is a British thing, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah. Because I was talking with a friend recently about it, because she was saying she found it really surprising when she came over here to England that people say things like, oh, we should meet up sometime. We should have a coffee, but they don't mean it. They actually don't mean it. They do not want to see you again. And I was saying there's a balance. If you say, oh, we should meet up sometime, bye, then it's so vague that maybe you're just being polite. But she was saying someone that she had met had said, oh, let's meet up on Thursday. I'll send you a text. And then they just never got in touch and never met up. And I said, that was a little bit rude. I think that's too far. If you say a specific day and you think, yeah, we'll see you again, and then you don't, I think that's a little bit too far. I don't know. I think it's a bit of an English thing, though. I just wouldn't say anything. If you don't want to see that person again, just don't say anything. Just say goodbye.
Many times I've asked people out on dates and had that. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Thursday, definitely Thursday. And they're not there. Yeah.
Oh, dear.
That's not true. But, yeah, I know what you mean. That's the cliche thing. We should do this more often, which actually translates, thank God we only do this every 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back in 2 weeks if you're listening when these come out, where we're going to be talking a bit more about some yoga philosophy. We'll be talking about the first of the yamas, which is called ahimsa, which means non-harming. So make sure you're subscribed and then you'll get that episode as soon as it comes out. And also, thanks as ever for anyone sharing or telling their friends about the show. We'd love more people to find out about it, so that sort of stuff is really, really helpful. Follow our Instagram accounts if you like. I'm PeterBrush_. Kayla is Kayla McCormack Yoga. And we're both on Twitter as well. If you look for our names in the show notes, it'll have all the correct spellings, such and such and such. Right, see you soon. Bye.